I am going to be reading from a book called 70 times 7. And my husband brought my reading glasses. I can see it. Forgiveness is power. It breaks the curse of sin. It frees us from our past. It overcomes every evil. It could change the world if we would only allow it to flow through us unchecked. But how often we stand in its way, not daring to unleash its force. We hold the keys to forgiveness in our hands, and we must choose whether or not to use them every day. We can close ourselves to the greatness of God, or we can open ourselves to God and allow God to work in us and through us. Far too often we refuse to believe that God can work in others whom we deem unworthy, in our eyes at least. They have sinned one time too many. We readily accept God's mercy for ourselves, but refuse to extend it to others. We doubt that God can really change them.
Today's scripture is Matthew 18, verses 21 through 35. Peter came up and asked Jesus, "When a sister or brother wrongs me, how many times must I forgive? 7 times? No," Jesus replied, "not 7 times. I tell you 70 times 7. And here's why. The kingdom of heaven is like a ruler who decided to settle accounts with the royal officials. When the audit was begun, one was brought in who owed tens of millions of dollars. As the debtor had no way of paying, the ruler ordered this official to be sold along with family and property in payment of the debt. At this, the official bowed down in homage and said, "I beg you, your highness, be patient with me, and I will pay you back in full." Moved with pity, the ruler let the official go and wrote off the debt. Then that same official went out and met a colleague who owed the official $20. The official seized and throttled this debtor with the demand, "Pay back what you owe me." The debtor dropped to the ground and began to plead, "Just give me time and I will pay you back in full." But the official would hear none of it, and instead had the colleague put in debtor's prison until the money was paid. When the other officials saw what had happened, they were deeply grieved and went to the ruler, reporting the entire incident. The ruler sent for the official and said, "You worthless wretch, I canceled your entire debt when you pleaded with me. Should you not have dealt mercifully with your colleague as I dealt with you?" Then in anger, the ruler handed the official over to be tortured until the debt had been paid in full. My Abba in heaven will treat you exactly the same way unless you truly forgive your sisters and brothers from your hearts.
Well, good morning. It's an honor to see every single one of you here. I think we're missing about 21 people, and so you are a gift. I'm going to begin with a pointed question. What does the Lord require of you? And I want to say this is from the Old Testament, the book of Micah, and there are 3 parts. Anyone? Jerry.
Walk humbly with your God.
Walk humbly with your God is 1. Jan. Who had it? Sue, okay.
To love your neighbor.
Sort of. It's close.
Can I hold them?
Well, to act justly. And do you know the last one, Jan? Love mercy.
Love mercy. Yes.
Love mercy. Those are the requirements. To act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Mercy is an interesting word, similar to compassion and forgiveness, but not quite the same. So I'm going to pull up, do you remember Tony Larson? He used to do things like this. All right. Compassion is a feeling that arises when you are confronted with another's suffering. So you see somebody suffering and you feel badly about it, which is not necessarily an action. So the Buddhists talk about compassion as an utterly direct expansion of the heart. Your heart expands. So I'm grabbing another one of my favorite authors, Dr. Seuss, who said, well, the Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Get this out of the way. So, I think it would be awful to have a small heart. I was reading a book by Sark, that's all capital letters, and well, this is kind of mixing in forgiveness as well, but she couldn't forgive the Girl Scouts, and she's an adult, for not giving her a badge when she sold the most cookies. She couldn't forgive the church for not letting her be an acolyte because she was a girl. And then with practice, she was finally able to forgive her dog for dying. Imagine going around in life just being disgusted with all kinds of things. So forgiveness, just a slight bit different, is a conscious, deliberate decision to release our feelings of resentment or vengeance. You just consciously say in your head, I'm not going to be angry about that. Let me find, oh yeah. So I have a friend who has a sister-in-law, or had, who's just mean. And would come to all the family gatherings and would be mean to people. And nobody liked her. And then she started stealing things, little things, from the relatives' houses. And she just could not let go of this kind of feeling. And actually the family didn't forgive her either. So it ended up being a divorce. I think this is why a lot of horrible things happen with people. They get stuck in some groove that their mind isn't working right. But mercy, that's what I'm really talking about today, responds to forgiveness or compassion in an unexpected or unmerited way. So really, this is the verb of it all. That's what I call this. Mercy is a verb. You do something. You don't just have a feeling, which is very powerful. Don't get me wrong. Especially if they're negative or positive. But mercy is you kind of feel these things and then you act on it. All right. Oh yeah. Thomas Meredith of Racine is just the best example I could find. And this happened quite a while ago in 1992. One of his sons was with a couple of buddies and they were out drinking. And they got in the car and the driver, his son wasn't the driver, he missed the curve on Horlick Drive and the car went down into the ravine and the young man, his son, was killed. So Mr. Meredith, when eventually this went to court, pleaded for mercy. Pleaded that there should be no jail time, and that he would be happy to employ the driver in his own business. That's just amazing mercy right here in town, and I'm sure it goes on all over the place, and I haven't caught them, but Um, Author C.S. Lewis said, C.S. Lewis, we must remember our prayers. Ah, yes. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We are offered forgiveness on no other terms. To refuse to forgive is to refuse God's mercy for ourselves. There are no exceptions. And I'm going to read that last part again. To refuse to forgive is to refuse God's mercy for ourselves. There are no other exceptions. I know you all know the story of Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela, but I think this bears repeating because you hardly ever see mercy on an international stage. Tutu, by the way, won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984, but between 1948 and 1994, 600,000 people were displaced for racial reasons, and at least 21,000 people died in political violence. Mandela appointed Tutu as head of South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation Commission so that blacks and whites could attempt to live in harmony. Tutu invited confessions from whites in exchange for amnesty for those who committed crimes. Tutu said, "You have to look the beast in the eye. Ultimately, you discover that without forgiveness, there is no future. Without forgiveness, there is no future." I was wondering when I was looking at that, what would have happened if that after slavery, we didn't have that new president, who I forgot what it was, but someone who would have worked for forgiveness right then. Because issues with this are continuing today, as we know. We listened to Ron read Matthew 18. It seems like one of those things that doesn't make any sense. That you, not just 7 times do you forgive somebody, but 490 times. Which is like always. You always forgive people. And you might be thinking right now of all the people where you don't think that applies. But Jesus said, I tell you 7 times, but not 7 times, but 70 times 70. I think at this point, even the Dalai Lama would have trouble 490 times. A few years ago, I went through an angry phase, and actually some of you might remember this because it happened in church. I never did figure out why this started, but I did eventually ask people for forgiveness, and they gave it. It was kind of like an outward anger went inward at that point, so I decided maybe I better see a professional counselor. And she was very good at her job, and eventually I felt a sense of mercy, because mercy for yourself is a gift. And I think this is why this is part of the ritual of Catholic Mass. For those of you who have been Catholic, and I put part of it up here, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. And if I say that to myself, I can actually feel myself calming down, being more able to deal with a situation that might otherwise make me angry. The next 3 lines state, Lord, soothe me, comfort me, take away my pain, show me your steadfast love. There's something I also learned from this counselor, which may or may not work for you, and she's very good. She said if you're just feeling anxious or unforgiving or some bad feeling, if you tap yourself, you can start just a gentle tap. I do it on my leg, and it can lower stress. So it's kind of like, for me, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. And I usually do that on the out breath, if you want to try this at some point. It doesn't have to be, Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy. It could be any type of meditation or whatever you do to calm down, and you're breathing in and you're breathing out, just do a little tap. It doesn't work for everybody, but it did work for me. I want to end with a quote from Dan Harris, the author of 10% Happier. He writes at the end of the book, and excuse the language, I know that widening my circle of concern past my own crap has made me much happier. And to boot, compassion has the strategic benefit of winning the allies. Finally, it becomes quite obvious that compassion has allowed me to become a vastly more fulfilled person. Amen.